Welcome to yet another exciting episode of your show, Sports Business with Veronica, where we try to understand the transactions and business opportunities that come with sport in Zimbabwe. Today, I'm with a very big name for those who follow judo. I'm sure you've come across the name of the two-time Olympian and double female African judo champion, Debi Jeans, who is also an ambassador in the sport and international stage as a fighter and referee. How are you, Debi?
I'm very well, thank you, Veronica. Thanks for having me.
You look so good. Nothing close to your age at all. How have you been managing that?
I think I've been blessed with sport and exercise and health and wellness. Being in that area and that industry, I'm blessed enough to be working in that industry.
I think judo is so rich to have people like you. We have been there at the biggest stage, done that, felt the atmosphere, the highs and the lows, and you are still here to tell the stories. Thank you so much and welcome to the program. And maybe for a start, people will just want to know, who is Debi and how did your judo journey start?
Well, I didn't really have much of a choice in the matter because my mum and dad met in a judo club in Plymouth in the UK. And then my dad was a civil engineer and he answered an advert for civil engineers to come out 60 years ago to Rhodesia then. So he came out with mum and they were supposed to be here for 2 years and they never went back. And what they did is when they came out, 61 years now, they brought judo with them. So they started judo in the country. And then I was born a couple of years later, and when I got, 6, 7 years old, I started judo, so that it was my whole life. It's all I've really ever known. And they were just the most amazing parents, passionate about judo. And so they've just thrown their weight behind me the whole way, and I'm just feel very blessed that I was able to make them proud and just to represent, on the Olympic and the African stage, and also then go on to refereeing, which both of them were world referees as well.
Okay, and maybe if we want to look closer to your family, how many were you in your family, and how many of you guys took up judo?
So there's 4 children. So I have 2 sisters and a brother, and at some stage they all did judo. My brother got to black belt. But my sisters were doing other sports as well. So that's the challenge that we always have with judo, is that normally when someone's good at judo, they're normally good at other sports as well. Zimbabwe is fantastic with sport, as you know. So that's where we lose a lot of our very talented athletes to that. So we all did it at some time.
Okay. And now that you were in Zim, you took up school in Zim.
Yes. And
your parents are the ones that introduced judo.
Yes.
At your time in school, did they have judo in school, or it had to be judo at home and then school at school?
That's a very good question, and it's something that we're constantly fighting against. Is in around the rest of the world where judo is very big, like France or the UK, and that the judo is in the schools. Japan, it's in the schools. So here, it's always been done as a club, which is extracurricular to what your rugby, your tennis, the other sports are. So we've always done it as a club. So we've had to do it over and above the other sports that you're doing at school.
Oh, okay. And then, Manja, how did you balance it in school, having to do other sport? Because then coming home, you are going to be at the club trying to do judo, and yet you also have the curriculum activities waiting for you.
Even our Minister of Sport, Kirsty,
yes.
Even in her day, and I remember her speaking with, she had her coach come and visit out, and she just said, one of the beautiful things with Zimbabwe is that we do a lot of sport for children at a basic level going up. So you're able to try your hand at many different sports. And it was compulsory to go to sport, as you know, from school. So you developed a really good physical grounding, and then judo was on top of that. And judo is a contact sport, so you can't just go into it without having good physical grounding, So I'm very grateful to that, that our school system is so good that everybody tries quite a few sports, and you will find a sport that you're naturally good at. So it was in addition to my training, which was, it was hectic, it was hard, but you know what, then those principles of discipline come in and prioritizing things, and and I had very good Japanese coach as well, and like I say, my parents behind me the whole way.
Okay. And now you are still in school, you are taking up judo at club level. Maybe taking us through your journey, how you rose up until you went to the Olympics.
Okay, so I would say my first international I was 15 years old, was the South African Championships. And I'm sure like a lot of sports, the South Africans are really good. So my feeling is even, as an administrator in a sport, that we should really throw all our weight behind going to South Africa to compete, because they're right there, it's financially viable. And if we can really medal with the South Africans, then we can look further afield. So that's basically what we were doing with judo in those days, and we are today, is that we would go and compete down south, and then with those international ones, that was the stepping stone to going to further and further. So my training was 15 years old, was really when I did my first international, and then at 18 was my big break. Then I went to the World Championships in Paris. I was 18 years old. I worked as a waitress while I was at university and school to try and raise money for that. I went over, and wow, it was like, can't believe it's so big. We're really a small fish in a little pond here, and it was a terrible experience, because everybody said to me, you're always training with the men, you're going to be able to just annihilate those women. Well, I went over, and I think I lasted 40 seconds, and she threw me with an ippon, which is like a knockout. Yes. I was so distraught, and then she just lost before the final, so I was out. So I'd gone all that way for one fight. But I'm so grateful, Veronica, that I didn't give up, because I vowed never ever for that to happen again, and for me to never ever underestimate any opponent. It didn't matter who they were. And I went back and I did the work, and it was by the grace of God, because everybody would have understood if I'd given up then. But I would have not had 40 years of the most incredible life experience of being involved in the sport if I'd stopped then. So those are the lessons that I love passing on. Is like, judo has a saying, get thrown down 5 times, get up 6 times. And you will always win. And it's like life.
Okay. Yeah. And you are a 2-time Olympian.
Yes.
Which are the 2 times that you went to the Olympics, and what really transpired there?
So it was Seoul Olympics. And the amazing thing, it was the first time that women's judo was going to be held there. And I came 8th in the world, which was amazing. We had to qualify to get there to win the continentals and that. Yes. And then I also did Barcelona. Yeah, just amazing. I mean, the Olympics, you know what? No one can understand the training and the lead up to the Olympics, the actual Olympics themselves, the highs, the terrible lows, the victories and the defeats. But at the end of it, what my dad himself, he was serving on the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee. It's called Olympism. Yes. And Olympism means it's not about winning the medals. It's about always bettering yourself and putting the best that you possibly can on the line, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So the Olympism is those things that make you cry when you're watching the Olympics. The people who win the medals are great, but the thing that makes you cry is the person who's stumbling in last but keeps going till they hit the line. And that's Olympism. And it's just indescribable, and the only piece of people who really understand are those who've been to the Olympics. But it is something that I think is an honor, and it is our responsibility to go to something like that, and then to come home and spread that Olympism at every level, not necessarily at Olympic or high elite training, yes, but throughout whatever sport and exercise and wellness and sportsmanship.
And you mentioned earlier on that there's a time that you had to take up a job while you're still in school, so that maybe you can fund yourself.
Absolutely.
Up to most of these events. How has been that for judo in Zim? Is there been any form of maybe financial assistance, even from the ministry or from any other organizations, to help you guys partake some of these competitions?
Okay, so I would say not much has changed in the decades since I competed, which was I was mostly self-funded, and my parents, thank goodness, also threw their weight behind that. So I was very blessed to have that assistance. Even in the refereeing, once you get to world referee, yes, then they will pay for you to go. But what normally happens, Veronica, is if you're having a team going to compete, let's say in Algeria at the Africa Championships or Africa judo competition, you should have at least one referee from each country. which is normally sponsored by the association or the government, the state, to go. We've always battled with that, and even today. So there's things like the Africa Games and the Youth Games, like regional and that. Yes, SRC and ZOC come to the party. For the Olympics, ZOC come to the party, of course, they pay for everything. And ZOC are very good now at scholarships, which is giving athletes scholarships to help them to qualify. So they will identify well-deserving athletes and they'll get those. But at the end of the day, when you look at how our countries who are doing it the proper way, is we are lacking so much funding. And the whole thing is like Cuba, for example.
Yes.
We had 2 professors out here, they were amazing, and they said, no, we put all our money into the coaches. So if there's some little guy out in the Kamusha, and he's a fantastic judoka or a fantastic runner, that coach will pick him up, and he will move through the system. And he is given whatever he needs to make sure that he is able to be assisted all the way through. And actually it doesn't cost a lot if you look at that, but we've got to be doing that coaching system where you start right at the basic and then they come through all the way to the elite. And Cuba these professors of sports medicine were amazing. They said their model is very much for Zimbabwe. They don't have fancy high performance centers or things like that, but they have the most incredible system where their coaches are invested in hugely. So even at school, you wouldn't have a phys ed teacher who's looking after a little 6-year-old who doesn't have a 5-year degree. So imagine the caliber of athlete you've got right across the board. And not just athletes, Veronica, it's also about health. It's about when kids do sport, they should leave school looking to continue to do sport and exercise and stay healthy. And that's very much the model that I feel could be in Zimbabwe if we got Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Sport working together. I think that would be an amazing combination.
Okay. And here we talked about the ministry and the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee.
Yes.
We also have the corporate world.
Yes.
How has been the support from the corporate world?
You know what? I take my hat off to the corporate world because, it's hard doing business in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
I feel strongly that if the people in charge, like just for example, SRC, Ministry of Sport, Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, if they could make any funding that a corporate gives to sport tax deductible, it's a win-win for everyone. And I think that is the way we need to look at it, because we keep going with the begging bowl. And yes, they want their name and it's sponsorship and they're going to get their name up there, but I think at the end of the day, if you could say this is a tax deduction or some of it off, we absolutely desperately need funding. I'm seeing athletes all the time. They cannot even eat, Veronica. They can't eat the correct food. They can't get transport to where they're supposed to be going. And it's these little things that, can make such a difference. It really can.
Okay. And maybe on a lighter note, since you had to raise the funds yourself with the help maybe of your parents for you to attend most of these events, maybe on a lighter note, what are some of the struggles that you remember? Maybe some of the events that you had to participate in without enough financial muscle to do so?
You know what, I think that the biggest thing was that back home, you don't have the level of training that you need for competing. So what I used to do, and I think a lot of athletes still do, is I used to go to France and train at the Institute of Sport, the National Institute of Sport. So I went to UZ, and UZ had a very long vacation at the end of the year, 6 weeks. And so I used to take all those 6 weeks and I would go and I would stay at the Institute and I would train with the French team. And then I would compete after that in anything that was happening in that area. What that did for me, Veronica, is when I came home, I knew the level at which I had to be training. And then for things like Africa Championships and that, because I trained with the best in the world, and because a lot of other countries would come to the training camps and that, it was so good for me. But the biggest thing that I missed was that I was not able to continue the level of coaching, the level of nutrition, the level of support that you had at these institutes. And it wasn't anything major. We were sleeping on concrete benches, with student quarters, freezing cold and cold showers and that. But it doesn't matter. That level of support and the system is not here. And the system is, even at the most basic level, we need to have coaches that are understanding exercise science, nutrition, sports psychology. It doesn't cost much.
Yes.
You know, strength and conditioning. In Zimbabwe, if you're a good hockey player, you go play hockey. If you're a good judoka, but nobody's looking at strength and conditioning.
Yes.
Fitness testing, nutrition, you know, these things. And so I would say that when I look back, I think most of my career I was overtrained. I honestly think I was overtrained. I think if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have done half the training and have been double as effective.
Okay. And here you are someone who has a very good support system. Your parents are so supportive towards all this. But we have potential in the marginalized areas.
Absolutely.
Or the other side of town.
Yes.
Where parents struggle to put a decent meal on the table.
Yeah.
But their son or maybe their daughter has potential in judo. How then do you assist such situations?
Well, our current Jazz Judo Association Zimbabwe executive has done such amazing things in the last couple of years. They have the International Judo Federation Judo for Schools program is up and running. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. They also have Judo for Peace. So Judo for Peace is an organization that happens in places like Afghanistan or terribly war-torn or areas where people do not have access to, you know, to the facilities. We have Tongogara refugee camp.
Yes.
We have a fantastic judo club there. And I mean, every time those guys compete, I'm like, wow. There's the fighters of the future. They're amazing. And these little ones in Tongogara, they start training at 5 a.m. in the morning. You know, it's an hour, 2 hours before school, then they come afterwards because they're hungry. And you know, it doesn't matter if it's judo, boxing, wrestling, taekwondo. You're going to get your fighters from those who are challenged in life. And that's where I feel that the potential for judo in Zim is so strong. And the Judo Association of Zimbabwe is doing some amazing things. But again, they're always struggling for the funding, you know, and my heart goes out to that because it's like we just need little things continuously at the grassroots level. So, for example, if you don't, you know, if you have a beautiful car but you feed it contaminated fuel, it's not going to go far.
Yes.
So you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not eating correctly, you know, it's not going to help. So I strongly believe that we could really address small issues that would give us huge returns. And that's really teach the parents, you know, eat sweet potato instead of bread, for example. You know, these little hacks that would make such a difference. But we need to strongly go in at a level where it's looking after the wellness of the athlete.
Okay.
And then if we have the coaching that comes afterwards, then we can do really well.
Okay. And maybe throughout your career as an athlete, did you at some point maybe get remuneration for being a fighter?
Never. No, never.
And the situation is still the same up to
I think
now?
it's still the same, yeah. I think in some sports, I may be wrong, I think maybe soccer, maybe rugby, if you're playing at a club level, you know, I think you get paid, and that's great. I like to see that. But no, not in judo.
Okay. And then there came a time when you then became the president.
Yes.
Maybe take us through the transition. What made you stop fighting to say, now I want to take up administration?
Okay, so I actually qualified for the third Olympics, which was in Atlanta. The Africa Games here, if you remember, quite amazing and quite nice. I was at the ZANU-PF headquarters there, and I won the gold. So that automatically qualified me to go to Atlanta. But you know what, Veronica? I had two children by then, you know. I had spent so much time away from them because I had to go overseas and train, you know, for 6 weeks at a time, 3 months at a time. And I was enough. It wasn't the Olympics per se, it was the training that's needed to go.
Yes.
And so it gave me the greatest pleasure to be able to step down then and give it to, she was from Tunisia, my opponent, who I beat, and she went to the Olympics. And can you believe it, when I got my international world referee certification,
yes,
she was right there in the same stadium in Morocco where I won my first gold African medal. And I was also fighting her for that as well. So
And
we
how
became
did you feel
referees.
about
Yeah, it was amazing. And that's what I'm talking about Olympism.
Yes.
You know, he was my best competitor.
Yes.
and not once, twice. And then there we were both getting our world championship license to referee, and that's what it's all about. Best of friends today.
Okay. And since your parents are the ones who started who introduced judo in Zim, what are some of the struggles that you remember seeing them go through just to see this sport
flourish? Yes. I would say exactly the same as what the current association goes through, and that is, it's volunteering, isn't it? Sport in Zimbabwe needs volunteers. I don't believe for a moment that that's what it should be. Training in France, I saw that judo is second only to soccer in France. There's like a 6-story building where people are employed full-time to run judo. And that is why, they're just so successful. I don't think we need to do it on that scale, but I do believe that sport should be run like a business. There should be a central personal assistant or secretary general who's like doing it full-time. Instead of, many people are asked to give of their free time. So that's always a challenge when you've got to put food on the table and you've got to go to work, and I see many sports held back by that.
Okay. And now that you mentioned the issue of taking sport as business in Zimbabwe,
yes.
How do you understand sport business? How best do you define sports business? And what are some of the major things that you see, you feel you want to see change, especially in judo?
Okay, it's not just judo. I wouldn't wish anything for judo that I don't wish for the other sports. I would love to see that, there's many administration courses that are given, which is great, by the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, by SRC, I think by Ministry of Sport as well. But you can do administration courses, but you actually need financial education on how to run a business so that everybody wins. So that you can raise sponsorship, that you can have, I know SRC are so good at making sure that your books are kept up to date, and everything balances out, and that's great. Corporate governance, all of these things, these are things, yes, to run an association, but at the end of the day, it needs to be run like a business. And I would challenge you to find any sport in the world that is successful in their country, they will be run like a business. Because then it's win-win for everyone. You look at World Rugby. My husband works a lot with World Rugby, and it's amazing. And these people are paid full time to just throw themselves into making sure that everything gets done, and that they're out there. You've got a person who's dedicated to going to raise the funds and everything. So, really, I think that's the way we really need to go.
Okay. And when we talk of business, definitely we talk about sponsorship. We talk about marketing.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Do you feel that sport is properly marketed in Zim?
You know what, I think probably not, because we're all kind of, we're behind the curve in terms of knowing who you should be targeting. But I think that sponsors also are going to come to the party if they see how well the business is run, just like any business to business. At the moment, wonderful sponsors who come and go, I want to help rugby because, I love rugby. But it should be more than that. It should be a vested interest for both partners. It should be a partnership in every way.
Okay. And when you look back at your journey in judo as an athlete and during your time as the president of the association, what are some of the things that you wish, if you could get a chance today, you would have wished to do differently?
Wish I could have done differently. I think I would have delegated more. I would have surrounded myself with professionals instead of trying to do it all in a small little, a small group of people who are dedicated, but we don't have the training to understand the business aspects of it. So just because we've got the passion and the dedication and the volunteerism doesn't mean that we understand what it takes to run a business. And I think that's where outsourcing or getting people on board who understand completely what's the strategy of a business and how things should run like that. I think that's what I would change. I would surround myself. But you see, then how did I didn't have any financial means of doing it. So if there's a volunteer who happens to do some bookkeeping, well, great, then she becomes the treasurer.
Yes.
That's how the associations are working. But I don't believe that it should be. It should be someone who's paid full time or paid as an independent contractor for their services.
Okay. And what are some of your achievements during that time?
While I was president,
Yes.
I would say it was to carry on the legacy of my parents. That was a big one. And I would say the greatest achievement was being able to step back and hand it over to the most amazing group of people who started judo with my parents when they were this high. So they have come through the whole thing, and they're running the association, and I had the privilege of bringing Mum is living in the UK now. I brought her back 2 years ago, and what an amazing welcome she got. They had a wonderful competition in memorial for my dad, and what a welcome back. And that's what I love, the judo family. So being able to step back and go, it's in really good hands, and the legacy continues.
Okay, here you are a family. You inherit this president's post from your dad.
Yes.
Because your parents introduced judo in Zim.
Yes.
And now comes a time when you then have to step back
Yes.
and hand over to someone
Yes.
who's not from your lineage.
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
Well, I was very blessed in that the president and the group that I handed over to, I've known them I've known them their whole judo careers because I'm older. And I absolutely understood the nature of the personalities and the commitment to the principles of judo. So I had no qualms in handing over at all, because we'd been together through so much, through competing, through running an association, through doing that. And I think that's how associations should be. So my vice president became the president, and that's perfect. What a wonderful thing to see happen.
But didn't you at some point maybe feel that this is my dad's thing and it should remain probably in the family, or we should have an upper hand in how it's run on a day-to-day basis?
No, because I saw the struggles for my parents. They organized the Africa Games here, as did every sport.
Yes.
It was a year out of their lives,
Yes.
out of their work, resources from home, time, commitment. It was a year, and it's hard to run an association properly. And I had a good taste of that. So all I did, my feeling is they started the baton. Dad gave it to Mum. Mum became president for some time. Then Dad was president again. Then he gave it to me. And it's my time to hand it on. And I love that. Because you know what, especially exactly what you say, Veronica, you have other things as well. There's a lot of stress involved in running an association. And so I'm the godmother officially now.
Yes.
And I said, I don't want a position, please, because I'm not worthy, because I don't have the time that it should take to be an SG or anything like that. But as a godmother, I will throw my weight behind whatever you need. And I've found that works so well, being impartial and not on the committee, and just making sure that things work well, and if there's any issues or anything, I'm an objective party who has a good investment in making sure that there's a good outcome for everything.
Okay, and growing up in a judo family, and you mentioned that your husband is also involved in rugby.
Yes.
Maybe if you can take us through your life away from the judo. Is it the judo courts or?
Yes.
Yes. Your life away from the judo courts. What is it that you spent most of your time talking about when you were at home, and how did you meet your husband? Was it in any way involved was he in any way involved in judo at the time?
Well, the most amazing thing, Veronica, is it's just like how miraculous your meetings can be. So it was the first sports medicine conference ever held here. It was when sports medicine was just starting out, 36 years ago. Okay. 2007, I think it was. And the Olympic Committee there were two wonderful presenters, sports medicine doctor, and one was a vet actually who studies cheetahs in Kenya. And they came to do the first ever sports medicine conference. And judo got 2 invitations, and the Zimbabwe National Army got 2 invitations. And my husband was put through med school here with the Zimbabwe National Army, so he was busy in Mozambique. And they got given 2 invitations. So he wanted to go, so I met him there. And the amazing thing is that he was in military fatigue, so it was love at first sight. But what I'm saying is that he wasn't really into sports medicine. He was an army doctor. And I was, of course, with judo.
Yes.
But our lives from then just was all sports exercise medicine from there. So I look at it and I just think, wow, we were so blessed to go. And he nearly didn't go, because he was supposed to go back to Mozambique. But he managed to just do this for a couple of days, and now he's a sports medicine practitioner, as you know. He's worked for ZOC for I think over a decade. He did his service there. He's worked I think 30 years with Zimbabwe Rugby, and he lends his hand wherever he can, and he just loves the sports medicine. It was his privilege to be in Uganda now when Zim won the rugby, and he was part of that. So absolutely fantastic for him to be part of the Zimbabwe team. And yeah, that's our life. So we have turned our passion for sports and exercise and fitness into what we do now. You know, we run a gym. We've run 2 gyms in the past. He has a sports medicine practice. We love everything and anything to do with health, wellness, and fitness. And we've also graduated from just athletes to wellness through the whole population. As you know, with COVID, things are really bad now. You know, people are in a bad way. Hypertension, Zimbabwe, we are absolutely distraught at the state of health of Zimbabweans. So that's where we're able to work every day in that area.
Okay. And apart from the sport and wellness issues, how else do you spend your time together?
Well, I'm a go-go now.
Okay.
So we have been so blessed with 3 children, 3 beautiful children, 2 sons and a daughter. And we've also been blessed in that they, the 2 of them qualified in South Africa. One is a doctor, one is a vet. And they have been here in Zim. And so we've basically just had a really, really busy life and a wonderful life with what we do professionally. And then we love our Zimbabwe community. We'd never, ever leave here. We just absolutely love it. And our children, yeah.
Okay. And back at home with your parents, didn't it become a situation whereby most of your conversations as a family revolved around judo? Did you ever have time for something else?
So there's a saying in my family now, when we get together, no one's allowed to talk judo because you know, we spoke judo the whole time, and for me it was such a privilege. But for my 2 sisters and my brother who were doing other things as well, you know, they learned some judo, but they were doing other things as well, you know. And I just, maybe because I was the firstborn, I don't know, maybe because I was following in their steps, but I loved it, yeah. And my mom used to come home from work. She was a secretary, and she'd had a 30-minute turnaround. Then she'd go and coach judo at the schools in a judo mat in October under a tree, and we were the bodies, you know. So my whole life has been judo.
Oh, I see. And your kids? Did any of them?
They all did judo, of course. My 2 sons, both my sons are black belts. My daughter did judo, and then unfortunately, like I said, she was very good at water polo, at swimming, so that kind of took precedence. But what she learned on the judo mat was so good for her in the water polo pool, because I don't know if you ever played water polo, it's just judo and water, you know, it's fighting. So yes, they've all got a judo background, and I think the boys, because they're black belts, but even Rachel, it's been so good for her, Veronica, for self-defense as well.
Yes.
You know, it's such an amazing sport for women.
Oh, okay. And now, coming to your cancer journey.
Yes.
At what point did you realize that something is wrong with me? What is it that you saw to say, what's this? Something
I need
just
to go
not
and get help, yeah. So my mum, who's now 87, and she was doing judo till she was 80, I've got to tell you, she's unbelievable.
Yes.
But she got breast cancer 20 years before I did. And I remember feeling the lump. It was like the tiniest pearl earring. And then one morning, I felt lumps, 2. And they felt exactly the same. But you know, I was like, can't possibly be. I'm healthy, I'm fit, can't be breast cancer. And I share my journey because I hope that it gives inspiration, but it also, you know, it's always nice to know how somebody else did it. I eventually went to this wonderful doctor. I had, she said, no, I know your family history. Mum has had breast cancer. I went for a mammogram. It didn't come up on the mammogram. I went for ultrasound. It didn't come up on the ultrasound. But this incredible GP saved my life because she said, I don't care. I want to see the tissue, your tissue on my desk. And there it was. And so obviously I got the breast cancer diagnosis. And then I was very privileged in that I was able to go to South Africa to an amazing team. I had a double mastectomy and I was put on a form of chemotherapy which is, it blocks the estrogen receptors because cancer loves sugar. I think you like sugar, it loves it 50 times more, but it can be fueled by estrogen. So I was very lucky that I didn't do the traditional chemo. I had a double mastectomy, I came back, and since then I've just gone, how did I, double Olympian, 3-time African judo champion, how did I end up in a breast cancer unit? But when I look back now with what we know, it's how did I not get breast cancer? Terrible stress, training too hard with no recovery, and terrible nutrition. Because in those days, if you remember, Veronica, we were taught, you need carbohydrate, you need to be eating sugar for absolute rubbish.
Yes.
And so I really had, although I didn't have a weight problem per se, although I struggled to stay underweight even on 4 hours exercise a day, I had a metabolic problem. I was very sick. And I think if you'd measured my blood in those days, you would have seen very high blood sugar, high insulin, you would have seen inflammation. And those are all the perfect terrain or soil to grow a cancer seed in.
Okay. Taking you back to the time when you felt the lumps.
Yes.
Were there any other symptoms apart from the lumps?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And during the time, from the time that you felt the first lump,
yes,
up to the time that you then went for diagnosis, what was it that was going on through your mind? Because 1 minute you are an athlete, you are there at the peak of your career. The next minute you decide, well, I think it's time for me to step down and become an administrator. Then now, this thing pops up.
Absolutely. So, and that's why I actually did a course last year, a year's course. I'm an exercise physiologist, but I did a course last year which is patient advocacy. So I'm a patient advocate using the lifestyle medicine approach to cancer. Not against standard of care, but we can use a little chemo right at the end. Okay, so it's basically going back to the kamusha, doing what Gogo's always done. In the sunshine, working some exercise, eating real food, being happy, managing the stress. So this course was absolutely amazing, and I am standing up there about to launch my own workshop, if you like. It's called Navigating the Breast Cancer Journey, and I work with the Cancer Center. They're amazing. And the reason I'm doing that is because when I had this, I didn't go and see a doctor for 3 months. Because number one, I was kidding myself, but I'm fit and healthy. I don't, I'm not the
denial.
Yes, the denial is real. Because the horror of what if it is so big. So I share that and I go, listen, I think I was still lucky, but those 3 months can make a big difference.
Yes.
And I'm also very big on things like the Cancer Center. People just don't know. You can go and have a full breast examination with the most incredible clinical nurses for $10. And cervical checkup as well,
yes,
as good as anywhere else. And it's just like, girls, just go. It is, but the biggest thing I would say, Veronica, my message is early detection is not the best prevention.
Yes.
Prevention is the best prevention. And if you have got a waist that's more than 88 centimeters, if you're overweight, if you've got hypertension, if you've got pre-diabetes or diabetes, if you're depressed, if you've got polycystic ovarian syndrome, any of these things, you are growing, you've got the perfect soil to grow cancer.
Oh, okay. And now, during those 3 months, when you felt the lump, but you had not yet gone for diagnosis,
yes,
did you open up to anyone else? If you opened up, who was the first person that you decided to tell?
No, I didn't tell anyone.
So you battled with the stress on yourself?
I didn't battle. And I'm absolutely wearing my heart on my sleeve for you, Veronica, and for all those women out there. I just put it in the back of my mind, and I just kept busy, and in the end, I didn't even tell my husband. But when I told him, he said, you go now. And that's why it's like, just go, please go. Because it can make all the difference between a really aggressive cancer and getting it really early. But at the end of the day, I would say to everybody, even when you feel that lump and you have no access to medical facilities, you need to start cleaning up your act. You need to eat real food. You need to get some vitamin D. You need to do some exercise,
yes,
manage your stress, because a lot of that can keep a cancer tumor under check without fueling it.
Okay. And the very day that you went for diagnosis for the first time, if you still remember the date, and maybe if you can take us through that day, how it started, how you went to the doctors and how you came back home.
So we teach personal training courses. So it was a Saturday morning, I was teaching the course, and my husband came in. Now he's a doctor.
You
now
still
he
remember
will
the date?
Absolutely, 26th of October, breast cancer month. Can you believe it?
Oh,
God has a very strange sense of humor.
Which year was that?
That was 2013. Yeah. So Austin came, and he never interrupts my, when I'm presenting or lecturing. And he stood, I'll never forget it, in the gym, and he went, and I knew.
You felt that something
I just knew. I know that we were waiting for the results, and he's also a trauma doctor, so I've seen him. And when there is a situation, he just is very clinical, and I just knew. So I left my lecture with a wonderful student there, was able to carry on, and we went to the surgeon's office, surgery, and he said, I'm really sorry, but you've got breast cancer. And you know what? I'm married to a doctor.
Yes.
I was like, well, what now? You don't know where to go, what to do, you don't even know what to think.
Yes.
And and the surgeon will say, you can go, listen, you need to go and think about this, but you can go and talk to, I want to do a lumpectomy, or I want to go, I think you need to go and look at your options. What options?
Yes.
And that's the qualification that I have now.
Yeah.
Whereas I am the link between your medical team and you.
Yes.
So I will teach you the language of oncology and what all these options are that you have.
Yes.
And help you to navigate the way forward to making decisions that are ultimately life or death.
Okay. And when they delivered the news to you,
yes,
what's the first thing that came to mind, and what are some of the major changes that you had to go through in your lifestyles?
Okay, so when I had the diagnosis, I was so blessed because I think I just fell back on the judo training. It was like, okay, this is another opponent. Let's go in with the fight. But the kind of changes that I had to make in lifestyle were radical. I had to cut out all the sugar, all the bread, all the carbohydrate, because I don't think you know, but cancer cells can only live on carbohydrate.
Oh.
We don't need carbohydrate.
Yes.
If we don't touch another piece of bread or, some sadza or a biscuit for the rest of our lives, we'll be absolutely fine. If we don't have fat, we'll die, and if we don't have protein, we'll die.
Yes.
But we can live without carbohydrate, absolutely. So that's what I did. I had to radically change my nutrition. I had to radically change my way of dealing with stress, and I had to really start looking after myself and recovery.
Okay. And looking at changing the way how you deal with stress.
Yes.
What are some of the changes?
The changes for me, Veronica, everybody's different, but the changes for me were putting myself under a lot of expectations from other people and from myself. And everybody would look at an athlete and say, but you're a high-performing athlete, you're successful in everything you do. But what they don't realize is the stress behind the scenes.
Yes.
Because when you go to a competition for the first time, you've got nothing to lose.
Yes.
But once you're a champion,
yes,
everybody's gunning for you. I call it the champion mindset.
Yes.
And so I struggled with that. I let people step over my boundaries. That's another not a good thing. We all need to have clear boundaries, what we're happy with, and then so now you start resenting things. I didn't put enough recovery in. It was just pushing too much.
Yes. Okay. And at that time, you were now a wife, you were a mother. What are some of the challenges that came with the cancer in trying maybe to take care of your kids, trying to take care of your husband, the entire household?
So through the cancer journey, I would say the children, very difficult with the children because they just don't know what to expect, and people's reactions around them is what was the devastating one. I'm so sorry for your mum. It's like my daughter was at school, she thought, is she dying? It was terrible, and of course they just repress it, they just put it down and they try and get on with it, but there's this building fear in them. So I honestly think if I did anything different, I think I would bring my children. I did include them in everything, but I think I would absolutely have them involved in more. But also for people out there, when people have cancer diagnoses, be very careful of how you approach their loved ones, because they are already very fragile, and your attitude can really, really tip things in the wrong direction. They need support. They need, can I bring you something? Can I bring you a meal? Can I take you out? Are you okay? Do you need a lift to school? Those kind of things are amazing things that you can do to help a family of someone who's had a diagnosis.
Okay. And now you're a champion in cancer, and you are involved in a lot of activities. Some of them charity works in a way of giving back to the community. Maybe if you can enlighten us on some of these programs and of what impact they are to the community.
So I think I'm coming up now for 12 years post-diagnosis. So I created it's called the Pink Project. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but what I wanted to do was raise funds to bring specialists up here, or to uplift in any way I could the delivery of services for women with breast cancer. And the people I found, the angels, work through the cancer center. I just love, I'd had a relationship with them before because of my mum's breast cancer. I was always doing pink triathlons or pink whatever. And they were amazing. So I threw myself into the Pink Project in helping them to raise money. Yes. Then I appealed to artists 3 years ago, yes. to help us to paint murals in the cancer center. And Judoka came on board, just said, whatever you want, Debbie, just have it. These artists, I wish you could go down there, Veronica, it's a lovely trip, and see what they've done. Yes. But through the cancer center, doing as much as I can there. Then what I've done is I've actually developed a product that is called Navigating the Breast Cancer Journey. And what I will do is run it privately. And say, for example, you came on that course. Yes. Whatever you would pay on that course, you would sponsor a bosom buddy at the cancer center who is identified as somebody who cannot afford. Yes. And I would go and do exactly the same course there. So that's where I'm saying, I would love to do it full time. I absolutely would. It's not work for me. It really isn't. My experience now as not just a cancer thriver, but also as an exercise physiologist, as a patient advocate, all of that now has come to the fore. And the news for cancer patients, if you're going to get cancer, now's the time to get it, because there's so much that we can do in lifestyle approaches to help heal.
Okay. And when I look at your diagnosis time and your journey in cancer, this was not your first time coming face to face with cancer. Yes. You saw it through your mom's journey. Maybe taking you back at the time when your mom was diagnosed. How did you take the news? Do you still remember the day that she delivered the news to you guys? And how was it for you? What came through your mind?
So actually my dad as well. Sadly, I lost my dad to cancer. And he was a civil engineer here, so often out, yes. And he got a skin cancer that was terrible. It was really bad. Yes. But what I'm saying is, my cancer, when I got it, my breast cancer was kind of like, at the back of my mind, it was kind of always there because of both my grands had breast cancer as well. Yes. So in the back of my mind, it was like, there is a family history here. Yes. When my mum got her diagnosis, I'm ashamed to say I was quite young. I think it was early teens. Yes. And I don't really remember much. She was amazing. Yes. She just took herself off. She went and did mastectomies, were new in those days. She went to Cape Town University, Groote Hospital. Fantastic professor was doing reconstruction. And she went on the same drug that I went on. Never complained. Never ever went back to judo. And I was like, when I got breast cancer, it was like, Mum, this drug that everybody says is so terrible. You went on that? She said, hell yes, it was fantastic. She said, I didn't have menopause. So that was her attitude. Yes. And I think your attitude that you bring to a diagnosis has so much to determine how you're going to handle it. And I was like, okay, I'm sorted now. Go back in my life at 110% now, because I don't know how much time is ahead. And that was her attitude. So I don't remember much at the time, but her example to me is the reason that I'm standing up championing breast cancer is not the end of life. You should come out of it healthier than when you went in.
Okay, and now that you are a mother, you also have siblings, and looking at this cancer history in your family, what are some of the fears that come to you when you think of what happened to your dad, to your mom, and to yourself?
So there's no fear, because the big thing now, when I talk about a new approach to cancer, cancer is a metabolic disease, Veronica. It's not a genetic disease. If you can have the genetics, but that's only ever 30%. Do you know that?
Okay.
And so, so 70% is what? Is how we live our lives. So that seed can sit there and never ever become a tumor if you create a healthy environment that tumor can't grow in. But if you create an environment where you're overweight, you're not exercising, you're eating takeaways and sugar and processed food, you're not getting your vitamin D, you're stressed, you have hypertension, that's manure on that seed.
Okay. And now you are still involved in judo in different capacities.
Yes.
You run a gym on the side. You also have these cancer programs that you do. And how much is it taxing, especially financially, on your side?
You know what? All 3 children are grown up and earning for themselves. So as you can understand, that's great, because there's no more school, university fees to pay. I would say that we're very privileged in that we've been able to run gyms now for 30 years. Absolutely love it. That's our main business. But we really have gone into the running courses and workshop side of things now, and I love that. I absolutely love that. I love the vibe of, think of us of a support group on steroids.
Okay.
It's the vibe. It's getting everybody together. It's empowering people with knowledge. When they leave that workshop, they absolutely understand how they're going to navigate the way forward, creating a group where they know where to find the resources. These are all things that I'm very strongly in favor of African solutions for African problems. Yes. We don't have access to super duper chemotherapy, radiotherapy, surgery, all those things. There are wonderful people doing wonderful things, but we in Africa need to go back to our roots, because that is where the healing happens. It really does. And it's not just on the physical eating side, it's also on the mental, emotional, spiritual side.
Okay. And looking at your mom, you guys were privileged. You could afford to go and
Yes.
get the medical assistance
Yes.
that you needed at the time. But we have situations of
Yes.
people who can't afford that.
Absolutely.
What is there any form of assistance that they can get, or maybe how best can you advise that they approach the situation?
So that is where I'm so excited, Veronica, is that I've just had a lady, and she got a breast cancer diagnosis. She lives in Vic Falls, and a very aggressive triple negative breast cancer diagnosis. She came to Harare. She had the tumor taken out surgically, very good surgeon. Then she went back home because they couldn't afford the chemo. And she had approached me. I had said, this is what you need to do, which is everything I was telling you.
Yes.
The eating correctly, some exercise, vitamin D, managing her stress. So she did all of that. She cut out, from that day, she just cut out anything that was sugar or carbohydrate or refined, yeah? 6 months later, she had a well-wisher who said they would like to sponsor her for chemotherapy. So she came back into town.
Yes.
She saw the oncologist. The oncologist said, I need to send you for scans to see what the cancer's doing.
Yes.
She sent her for the scans. Absolutely no sign of disease.
Wow.
Absolutely cured, 100%. The most aggressive breast cancer. And even the oncologist said, I have never seen this.
Yes.
I need to talk to my colleagues to decide on what is best going forward. And they decided to wait and see.
Yes.
So she'll have checkups. But my point is, here is a woman with aggressive breast cancer.
Yes.
All she did was the metabolic approach, which
Yes.
is the lifestyle approach. And she has no disease. So is that not something, Veronica, that we should be pushing through Zimbabwe?
I think so.
Absolutely. If you have access to chemo, now the new thing is, if you do that,
Yes.
you only need 10% of the chemo
Yes.
to finish off the cancer cells at the end.
I see. And maybe going forward, probably a word to everyone out there in light of cancer, and also a brief reflection of what you feel were the highlights of your career as a judo person.
Okay, so 2 things. Highlights of my career were as a competitor,
Yes.
going to the Olympics, yes. But wow, being African judo champion in Zimbabwe, number one. Even better than the Olympics, to win that at home.
Yes.
The second thing was to be able to referee a world senior event.
Yes.
Because, nobody understands that refereeing is like, it says it was a 7-year journey for me.
Yes.
Again, high stress, just as much, maybe even more than competing. But wow, what a privilege to referee the best in the world. That was a highlight for me. I think I could have gone to the Olympics if I'd stuck with that, but it took another 4 years of just forgetting about family and business and everything because you needed to be on the circuit.
Yes.
So that was something else that I stepped back from, no regrets whatsoever. On the cancer side, what was your question on the cancer side?
Maybe your word to anyone out there in light
Yes.
of cancer.
Please, prevention is the best prevention. Please don't wait to get a diagnosis. Once we have a diagnosis, it's already quite far gone. It's much harder to come back from that. But please, just eat real food, stay away from processed food, fast food, seed oils, sugar, Cokes, fizzy drinks. Please just eat real food. Do some exercise, expose yourself to the sunshine, be happy, and I promise you that's everything else you will be safe for the rest of your life.
And I think you guys had her journey from the time that she was an athlete and how things then changed from being an administrator now to focusing on her journey in cancer. And it's been more than 10 years now. I think you can see she's very fit. She looks very fine. So I think from today now, I've a changed mindset. Personally, I'm one of the people who thought that maybe a diagnosis, a cancer diagnosis, means a nasty change of
Absolutely.
life. It's more of a death sentence for you.
Yes.
But I think today I learned a lot.
Oh, I'm
now
so glad.
I view things differently, and I understand that it's actually in the lifestyle that we can win this fight against cancer.
And can I just finish on one thing, Veronica, because you are absolutely right.
Yes.
For me, my body had to say, you will not listen to me.
Yes.
I've been trying to tell you, cancer is a part of us.
Yes.
If we use it as a lesson that I need to start looking after me, it's a big red flag.
Yes.
So, the body will eventually keep the score, and it will eventually give you the red card.
Yes.
And so I would not change anything to be where I am today from a cancer diagnosis. I've radically changed everything. I'm happy. I take every day. They're not always great,
yes,
but I am able to be in a vulnerable situation and in a gratitude for another day, because when you visit there, it's like, whoa, for the grace of God, none of us know how long we've got, but we forget to ask those questions and to take that gratitude until you visit a place like that.
And in this decade plus journey with cancer, have you been in and out of hospital because of this cancer, or when you had that?
I haven't been near hospital. No, I've been
great.
absolutely fine. And that's why, like you said, I was privileged. I had access to a fantastic team in South Africa.
Yes.
My mission is to bring what I learned there
Yes.
for Zim. And there's a lot of stuff that we don't need lots of money for.
Yes.
It's lifestyle. What does it cost?
Yeah.
It's nothing. It's
And
just
you are a
spread.
trainer. I saw you in class with the youngsters trying to teach them.
Yes, but we will never out-exercise the bad diet. That's another
Yes.
lie. I mean, I was an Olympic athlete. I
Yes.
got breast cancer.
Yes.
It might buy you a little bit of time, but at the end of the day, it's what you're eating is 80%.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for your time.
Thank you
and
so
thank you
much.
so much for the wise words, especially when we look at cancer and what it has been doing to the world in the recent years.
Yes.
So I think my biggest takeaway is that lifestyle can win you the battle against cancer.
Absolutely. And just to let you know, the latest stats are in 2030, 1 in 2 people will have cancer.
And I think
And if people don't sit up with that, 1 in 2.
Yes.
And it's totally preventable.
Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next week sometime. Thank you.